For more than 200 years, whispers have followed one name, a name spoken in palaces, in banks, and behind closed doors. Once, this single family was said to hold more wealth than the world's leading empires combined. Their banks financed kings, their gold fueled wars, and their influence, though rarely seen, reached every corner of Europe. But here's what few realize. The Rothschilds were not monarchs by crown or title. They were kings of credit, rulers of money itself. And while many royal bloodlines faded into history, this one, born from a Jewish banker's small house in Frankfurt, quietly reshaped the modern world's financial system. Today, their legacy still lingers in art, architecture, and institutions that define modern wealth. But how did one family, without armies or land, rise to hold power over nations? And what secrets lie hidden in their story of ambition, risk, and absolute control over trust and timing? Let's step back in time. Let me show you exactly how this happened. The story begins not in a palace, but in a cramped alley in the Jewish ghetto of Frankfurt. Here, a man named Mayer Amschel Rothschild built his life from almost nothing. Born in 1744, he was a coin dealer, studying old currencies, learning their value, and mastering the art of trust. In those days, Jews were banned from owning land or joining royal guilds. But they could trade money, and Mayer turned that limitation into opportunity. He earned the respect of Prince William of Hesse, one of the richest nobles in Europe. Soon, Mayer was managing his prince's fortune, investing, lending, and quietly growing his own wealth. By the late 1700s, Mayer had done something bold. He sent his 5 sons, Amschel, Salomon, Nathan, Karl, and James, to the major financial capitals of Europe: Frankfurt, Vienna, London, Naples, Paris. Each son built a bank under the Rothschild name. Together, they formed a network unlike anything the world had seen. Letters moved faster than armies. Gold crossed borders without being seen. When wars broke out, the Rothschilds stayed neutral but always prepared. They funded both sides, managing risk through communication and precision. Their advantage was information. When the Battle of Waterloo ended, Nathan Rothschild in London reportedly knew the result before even the British government. That speed made him millions and cemented the family's legend. Now here's where things get really interesting. As Europe rebuilt after Napoleon's fall, money was power, and no one controlled it better than the Rothschilds. Nathan's London branch became the center of global finance. He arranged loans to rebuild nations, including Britain's post-war debt. His brothers did the same across Europe, financing railroads, shipping lines, and governments. For the first time in history, one family held a cross-border financial system. They didn't rule by force, they ruled by trust, timing, and secrecy. Reports from the 1820s suggest the Rothschild network held more liquid capital than any European government. To put that in today's terms, imagine one family controlling the combined resources of the World Bank and IMF from private offices. Their method was simple but brilliant: keep communication faster, lending safer, and interests aligned. Each brother was independent but loyal. They reinvested profits in one another's banks. When the French government needed funds, James Rothschild in Paris arranged them. When Austria needed stability, Salomon handled it in Vienna. Soon, kings, dukes, and ministers all came to one door for help: the Rothschilds. Plot twist: the family never flaunted their wealth. No golden palaces, no lavish crowns. Instead, they built quiet estates, with gardens, art, and private chapels. They preferred to be invisible, letting their influence flow through systems, not thrones. But if you think that's extraordinary, wait until you hear this. As industrialization swept Europe, the Rothschilds adapted again. They moved from financing wars to financing progress. Railways, mines, bridges, projects that built nations. In France, James Rothschild backed the first major rail system. In Austria, Salomon funded the expansion of industry and steel. By mid-century, their banks touched nearly every major infrastructure in Europe. But their real innovation wasn't what they built. It was how they built it. The Rothschilds invented an early version of a global information network. Long before the telephone, They used private couriers and carrier pigeons to send coded messages. That gave them faster intelligence than governments. When the price of gold shifted in London, the Paris office knew within hours. And when a crisis began brewing in one country, they adjusted their holdings everywhere. According to historians, that communication speed made them almost immune to market crashes. They didn't predict, they prepared. Each branch bore an arrow, symbolizing unity and strength. Together, they were unstoppable. By 1850, the Rothschild family fortune was estimated at over £600 million, more than the combined wealth of Britain's top aristocrats. But while their power expanded, so did secrecy. Their ledgers were private, their methods guarded. They avoided the press and spoke rarely in public. This brings us to the most shocking discovery of all. Here's the part most people never hear. By the late 19th century, the Rothschilds had done something remarkable. They became, in effect, a financial monarchy. They didn't just lend money, they shaped economies. They helped stabilize currencies, influenced trade policy, and even mediated peace deals. When the Suez Canal was being built, the British government turned to Nathan's descendants for help purchasing shares from Egypt. The deal, quietly arranged through Rothschild bankers, secured Britain's route to India. Behind the scenes, their network linked Europe's major banks and even reached into America's early financial elite. Reports from the time described them as the sixth great power of Europe. Not an empire by territory, but by trust. Yet, the family's success came with a cost. Public suspicion grew. Caricatures and myths spread, some wildly exaggerated, others rooted in envy. But historically, the truth was simpler. The Rothschilds mastered the world's most powerful tool, credit. And in an age when nations borrowed to survive, that made them indispensable. Their rise wasn't luck or conspiracy. It was precision, discipline, and an unbroken line of communication built on family loyalty. But all empires, even financial ones, face change. By the early 20th century, wars, revolutions, and new banking systems began to shift power. National banks took the lead. Private dynasties faded. And so began the quiet retreat of history's greatest financial family. So what does all this mean for us today? Though their banking dominance faded, their influence on global finance remains visible everywhere. Modern banking systems, from central banks to bond markets, trace their origins to Rothschild innovations. They pioneered long-distance communication for finance. They created stable, multi-branch operations long before corporations existed. And they proved that information could be more valuable than armies. Their model shaped the way banks, hedge funds, and even governments manage risk today. While the Rothschilds themselves shifted toward philanthropy and art, their methods became the blueprint for modern finance. So why does this story matter now? Because it reminds us that wealth is more than gold or land. It's about systems, about trust, timing, and unity across generations. The Rothschilds turned barriers into bridges. They built power not by ruling people, but by mastering information. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is this. Real power doesn't shout. It whispers. Before we wrap up, there's one final thing you need to know. Few royal lines survive untouched by time. Wars erase them. Revolutions bury them. But the Rothschilds? Their empire of numbers outlasted empires of crowns. Though much of their fortune diversified into art, wine, and philanthropy, the name still echoes in the halls of history. Their estates in France, England, and Austria stand as silent reminders of a time when letters, sealed in wax, could change the course of nations. That crest symbolized something more than unity. It represented a belief that family, information, and trust could overcome almost anything. In a way, the Rothschilds became the lost royal line, not of kings but of financiers who ruled through influence instead of bloodline decree. And though history has moved on, the system they built still underpins the modern world. If this opened your eyes, imagine what's still hidden behind the ledgers of history. The story of the Rothschilds isn't about greed or mystery alone. It's about vision, about seeing opportunity where others saw limits. They turned letters into lifelines. They turned trust into an empire. And they proved that real wealth is built quietly, through time, through legacy, and through knowledge. So the next time you walk past a bank or see the words investment trust, remember, the blueprint was drawn 2 centuries ago by a family who started in a small shop on a narrow street. Because in history, power doesn't vanish. It just hides behind new names. If this story opened your eyes, subscribe for more hidden histories of luxury, legacy, and power. Drop a comment below. Which part of the Rothschild story surprised you most? And if you'd like to explore the next chapter, stay tuned. The world's wealthiest families may no longer wear crowns, but their empires are still all around us.